Okay, welcome back to my channel. I'm doing a new video after a very long break. The reason I will mention in the end of this video. So that scalp was my first video I think I've tried, and which was literally the worst one and really bad, but still it got some views. And I realized I learned something about editing, something about how to make quality videos. Still my face cam video, I'm using my laptop webcam, which is not certainly a good quality, but I've made this scalp, which I thought will be a very easy topic with you to share, but it was not so easy and had quite interesting facts in it. And I'm also sharing some MCQs, regarding few MCQs only. So I have tried to cover everything A to Z about scalp in basic knowledge. So I'll start the topic here, scalp. So as you know, whenever we start a topic scalp, we need some introduction, and the introduction is very easy for this because it refers to the layers of skin and subcutaneous tissue that cover the bones of cranial vault. Coming to the extents of the scalp, anteriorly, as you can see my cursor, I am trying to put my cursor over the supraorbital margin. Okay, anteriorly it has extend, or you can say in front it has extend till supraorbital margin. Posteriorly or behind, you can say it as in the occipital bone, you can say external occipital protuberance, and also some extension to superior nuchal line. That's about the posterior extension. The authors vary according to the different books, say different literature, some variations are there. So one side on lateral, some author says it is only till zygomatic arch. Few says, you can see my cursor, the zygomatic arch, and few say it has extension over the external acoustic meatus also. Coming to the layers of scalp, so easy mnemonic layer, SCALP. You can see the skin, you can see the connective tissue, C, A for aponeurosis, L for loose areolar tissue, P for pericranium. As shown in this diagram, the connective tissue is very important because all the vessels, nerve, vein and artery comes in connective tissue. So emissary vein is also getting opened here in connective tissue. Now talking about something, the skin of the scalp, it's very thick and also very hairy. Then it contains hair follicles and sebaceous glands. It is the commonest site of sebaceous cyst due to presence of sebaceous gland. Approximately 1,20,000 hair on scalp of adult is present. Of that, maybe 20 to 100 hair lost may be there daily. Coming to the next layer called connective tissue, or also known as superficial fascia. It is represented by dense connective tissue which is firmly attached to skin and aponeurosis. Blood vessels and nerves lie in this layer. Walls of vessels are adherent to fibrous network, and hence any cut will bleed profusely because vessel walls are unable to retract. Coming to another layer, aponeurosis is also called as deep fascia, or either also called as epicranial aponeurosis, or also called as Galeria aponeurotica. Lot of name, man. And the meaning of that Galeria aponeurotica is helmet, Latin term, I think so. So if you see in this diagram, that is the frontal belly, and in occipital region is the occipital belly. Okay, so this aponeurosis layer is freely movable on pericranium along with the overlying and adherent scalp and fascia. Anteriorly, it receives the insertion of frontalis, that is frontal belly. Posteriorly, it receives the insertion of occipital belly. The important thing here to see is that the wounds won't gape unless this layer is cut transversely because of the tension in antero-posterior direction by the occipitofrontalis muscle. If you see here, this muscle antero and this muscle is present posterior with the aponeurosis. So any injury that is not cutting this layer in transverse direction, that will avoid the gaping of the scalp. This is because that tension present here in anterior frontal belly and occipital belly in antero-posterior direction. So any injury that is not transverse like this, if we have transverse injury, then only reaching to the aponeurosis area only will create that gaping of the scalp. Then comes the loose alveolar tissue. This is the natural plane of cleavage during craniotomy. This is, you can see, this layer is transversed by emissary veins connecting veins in the second layer of scalp with intracranial dural venous sinuses. This layer is transversed by the emissary vein. See, you can see my cursor going, the emissary vein is going and connecting the veins in the second layer, that is in connective tissue. And they are starting from dural venous sinuses, so that intracranial and extracranial connection is going through this. For that reason, this area is called dangerous area of scalp, because any blood and pus freely tend to collect in this layer, which may travel along the emissary vein, that is valvulus vein, into the intracranial dural venous sinuses. Coming to the last layer of the scalp, that is the pericranium. It's formed by the periosteum of bones of vault of skin. So if as a student, when you're a student, it's very difficult to understand what is that periosteum. Whenever you see any, like the layer just above the bone, looks like a thread-like structure, continuous fibrous structure, that is the periosteum. Okay, it is loosely attached and can be easily stripped off. But at suture it is firmly attached, which attaches to the endocranium. That means this is, see the cursor, the bone layer. Okay, above, just above the bone is the pericranium. So what is the endocranium means? Below this is the external part, but below the cranium, which covers the inner side, that is called the endocranium. So at this sutures, wherever the sutures are connected, this pericranium is firmly attached from the external part to the internal part of the skull. So the key notes: these surgical layers of scalp, also called as scalp proper. So this skin, connective tissue and aponeurosis all together are called as surgical layers of scalp. Another keynote will be like, because of loose areolar tissue beneath the aponeurotic layer, easy avulsion of scalp proper when hair caught in machine. Any injury in the scalp is like, it will come avulsion. It's kind of avulsion injury. It will just come out as a whole. For example, you can see this diagram, the person holding the scalp with hair. This is like history. Some Red Indian used to remove the scalp proper of their victims as punishment. Also other certain histories tells that the scalp proper was removed. Not only Red Indian, some other peoples are also there in the past. They used to do in such a way, quite rude, but not now. Talking about the black eye. So any injury, blow to the skull or any cranial surgery is done, the blood and fluid collecting in the layer of loose alveolar tissue reduces generalized swelling affecting the whole dome of skull, but cannot pass either into the temporal or occipital region because of the attachment. So any injury or any surgical procedure is done, because the blood and the fluid will get collected in the loose alveolar tissue, which will produce a generalized swelling affecting the leg in the whole dome shape, but it cannot pass in the temporal and occipital region because of its attachment. But the blood slowly gravitates into the upper eyelids and also will go to the lower eyelids also. So this is happening because the frontal belly has no bony attachments anteriorly, leading to the formation of a hematoma, which we can say as a black eye. It is like kind of circumorbital hematoma of the eye, also termed as black eye. Another keynote is self-T-valve hematoma. This happens in pediatrics when any fracture of the cranial vault in infants, fracture of cranial vault in children with tearing of dura mater and pericranium, blood from intracranial hemorrhage communicate with the subaponeurotic space, that is the fourth layer, through the line of fracture. Cerebral compression does not develop or do not develop until the subaponeurotic space is filled with blood. That is a safety feature. So any head injury or fracture of cranial vault in pediatrics, this will cause the blood will not create a compression in the brain. Instead, it will go into the scalp till that subaponeurotic space is fully filled with blood, so which will avoid more damage to the brain. In same way, if CSF is filled, that is called as cephalhydrocele. Okay, this is also interesting. This is called as caput succedaneum. So temporary swelling in newborn, that is during labor or delivery time, when the kid is passing through the birth canal, there is a edematous condition of portion of scalp due to interference of venous return while passage through birth canal. So you can see in this picture. Usually this subsides in few days. So coming to the nerve supply, there are total 10 on one side. There are 8 sensory on each side of the midline. 4 front of auricle, that is from trigeminal branch. 4 behind of auricle, that is from second and third cervical nerve. 2 motor nerves are there, like one in front of the auricle, one in behind of the auricle. Supratrochlea, supraorbital, zygomaticotemporal and auriculotemporal. These 4 branches are a branch of trigeminal nerve, and 4 behind the auricle, that is second and third cervical nerve branches. So like greater auricular nerve, lesser occipital nerve, greater occipital nerve and third occipital nerve. So the 2 motor branches, one in front of the auricle, that is the temporal branch of facial nerve. Okay, it is a motor branch which supplies the frontalis belly. Okay, and there is posterior branch, that is a posterior auricular branch of facial nerve that supplies the occipital belly. Coming to the arterial supply, there are 5 on each side. 3 anterior to the auricle and 2 posterior to the auricle. The 3 branches are supratrochlear artery, supraorbital artery. So to take care about of this is that it is a branch of internal carotid artery, supratrochlear and supraorbital, and 1 superficial temporal artery. These are the 3 anterior from the auricle, that is a branch of external carotid, and posterior auricular artery and occipital artery is a branch of external carotid artery. So in this important point is that there is a potential collateral circulation between the external and internal carotid artery. So life-threatening scalp hemorrhage can be stopped by string or strap by encircling just above the ears and eyebrows. Just above the ears and eyebrows, if you dress like this with a string or a strap, you can avoid a massive hemorrhage of scalp. Coming to the venous drainage, it has 5 on each side. So here you can see from supratrochlear, supraorbital, like this, from supratrochlear and supraorbital, it goes into the angular vein, which is not mentioned here, but it's somewhere here, angular vein. Then it goes into the facial vein. Facial vein, here you can see the facial vein. And from this superficial temporal plus maxillary vein, superficial temporal and maxillary, it goes down to retromandibular vein. From there, it divides into anterior and posterior division. So this anterior division joins with the facial vein to form common facial vein, which ends up into the internal jugular vein. So this posterior division goes with this posterior auricular vein to form external jugular vein, and that ends into a subclavian vein. And there is some occipital vein with sub-occipital plexus. Now coming to the emissary vein. The meaning of emissary vein means that connecting intracranial dural venous sinus with extracranial veins. So as in this diagram you can see this emissary vein is getting connected with dural venous sinuses. So there are basically two types are there, that is parietal emissary vein and mastoid emissary vein. This parietal emissary vein goes through this parietal foramen to superior sagittal sinus, this region. The mastoid emissary vein goes into the mastoid foramen somewhat here below the ear, mastoid foramen, and that connects to sigmoid sinus. So coming to the diploic vein, it is actually quite a vast topic which is not covered under scalp, but still it's a part of a scalp, so I've added most of the portion of it in this. So these veins were first identified by Guillaume. So these diploic veins are valveless channels traveling between the inner and outer tables of the calvaria in the diploic space. It's kind of a mesh, like a Spider-Man web inside the cranial vault. And I think something like in medullary bone, there is some blood circulation is going on through this diploic vein. It acts as a link between the extra and intracranial venous system. And this change is size. They change in size during the growth from adolescence to adulthood. So it can be an important MCQ. Identified as an additional site of reabsorption of CSF fluid there. So this diploic vein developed at 2 years of age with dipole. So in this radiograph you can see a transparent 3 to 4 mm white bands. So in frontal, diploic vein emerge from the bone of this supraorbital foramen to join supraorbital vein. And anterior temporal, this lateral region, anterior temporal region, diploic vein pierces greater wing of sphenoid to sphenoparietal sinus or anterior deep temporal vein. In posterior temporal vein or diploic vein pierces the inner table in parietomastid angle to join the transverse sinus. Okay, in this diagram you can see that the outer cortex of the bone has been removed, and between the inner cortex and some medullary bone you can see this web-like structure, like kind of spider webbing you can say. That is the path channels of diploic vein. Coming to the lymphatic drainage, the anterior part of the scalp, this portion, anterior part of the scalp drain into the preauricular or parotid region, and the posterior part of the scalp drains into the posterior auricular or mastoid region and occipital lymph nodes. An elderly patient developed fever and worsening headache a few days after sustaining a scalp laceration and subsequent infection due to a car accident. At the hospital, the case was diagnosed as meningitis and superior sagittal sinus thrombosis. The attending physician suggested that infection to the sinus initially spread through one of the scalp layers. The scalp layer involved is, so this is most common, this is, in other terms it can be asked as the dangerous area of the scalp. So any meningitis or any thrombosis in the sinus will be due or through epicranial aponeurosis. Okay, which of the nerve supply of scalp do not derive from trigeminal? So this is the answer, greater auricular. The rest are the branch of trigeminal. The layer of the scalp containing the ramifying arteries, veins and nerves in the which layer actually. So here actually it's given as like quite confusing, fibrofattive. The answer is actually the answer is connective tissue. Don't get confused with the loose areolar tissue or something others. The plane of movement in scalp is always Galea aponeurotica. So this is the reason I stopped making videos long back. I have overall 71,000 views of all the videos, in which the early few videos are really bad, and I'm very sorry for that. I'm trying to make good videos, but I think this one was a good video. According to me, it took me 2 days for editing and making content of this PowerPoint. And see, the only one less than 1% people, 751, will click the subscribe button, so which really demotivates to make videos. So I'm making a video after a long time. I hope you understand. There should be some like increment in life. Without that, people won't do hard work. So this is a part-time profession, and it's not easy. It's the most time consuming part-time profession, and it is hopeless. So I am not making much videos, but still I'll try to do more videos and more detailed with the MCQ videos. Thank you for watching this video. Please do like, share and subscribe if you like this video. Now don't subscribe if you don't like, just dislike and go.